All right. Well, thank you and welcome to this series of interviews that I'm doing on economic development in Alaska, exploring the challenges and opportunities for Alaska Native corporations. My name is Debbie Atuk. I'm a Bering Straits Native Corporation shareholder and a portfolio specialist for Skyview Investment Advisors. Please be sure to watch through to the end for an important disclaimer. The Bethel Native Corporation has been investing in commercial real estate for many years and is active in construction, including a $35 million dorm project at Eielson Air Force Base and several school projects in their region. Their environmental division has been awarded projects in Yakutat, Nome, Pribilof Islands, Iliamna, and Kodiak. The BNC has a mission to increase revenue and expand geographically, and subsidiaries have projects in Colorado, Guam, Hawaii, and Japan. Anna Hoffman is their president and CEO, and we'll be talking about all of that, but I also want to make sure that we note that she is a former district court magistrate, known for conducting hearings in Yupik. Finally, Anna is co-chair for the Alaska Federation of Natives, whose annual event draws thousands of leaders from across the state. Anna, thank you for being here.
Oyana Debbie, Oyana Maslon Nom, Quinga Chunga Sago, Mam Trace Munga, Manapani Baknanach Nitan Patna Piunga on Facebook Live. This is my first Facebook Live event, so we'll see how it goes.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate the fact that you're fluent in your language. It's something that our family has been working on learning, retraining. My dad is retraining himself to speak his language. He was his first language was Inupiaq, and now he's teaching a bunch of us as adult learners. So there's a few phrases I can say, like "uvla lotak," "oanga ijaluk." That's my Inupiaq name.
Wow, nice.
There's a little more to it than that, but I didn't even really think about doing that today. So it's so daunting.
I heard there was a PSA, and I think it was in Inupiaq that I heard on the local radio station, and it was fun to catch a few of the common words between Yupik and Inupiaq. So
my dad calls those the ancient words, and I think that there's some really rich study that could be done amongst the different dialects between Inupiaq, which is what his focus is, but also across Yupik and Siberian Yupik.
Yes.
Around the Arctic Circle, I guess, the circumpolar region, right? Well, I have so many things that I would love to talk to you about, and today I really want to focus on learning more about your experience leading a Alaska Native-owned development company, which is how I see Bethel Native Corporation. As you guys have really become, you have a series of subsidiaries, you have a portfolio of companies, and you have local projects and you have projects far away. But I thought maybe we would start today with some local projects, and particularly what I'd like to see and hear more about is local hires by the ANCs. So can you talk to me about your experience with that?
Yeah, certainly. So Bethel Native Corporation is headquartered in Bethel, and I think that's a really important piece. A lot of other corporations of our size have centralized in Alaska's urban centers, and it's been really important for the board of directors to maintain the presence of our headquarters here. And so I think that has a lot of value. I appreciate it as a person born and raised here to be able to work for the corporation and still live here and contribute. The local projects, we are proud of the work we've been able to do locally. We have constructed a couple of large schools for the Lower Kuskokwim School District, downriver in Napaskap and upriver in Quikluk. And for your question about local hire, it has been important to us to promote local hire. And I can't describe the sense of pride that comes with that. And so at one point I thought I might be a school teacher, and I did some student teaching with junior high kids in the late 90s. And a couple of years ago when we had these projects busily being constructed, I would see my former junior high students, descendants of BNC shareholders, going down to the boat harbor, and they would commute to work by boat. So Nabaskat is 10 minutes downriver, and Quikluk is about 40 minutes upriver. And it was really something special to know that these young men and women here had gone to school here, and they can earn a good living wage and gain a skill that they can, and do all that locally. So they'd get in their boats in the morning and drive downriver and upriver and work on those projects and come home and still be able to subsist with their families year round. Even recently, one of our former employees now has his own contractor's license, and he's doing home remodels and things. So it's
so great.
Really nice to see that impact.
So you've actually spawned small business activity in your region.
That's
through that. Huge accomplishment. I love that. That's something that I learned about the trade school that you have in your region, and I had no idea. And I'm looking forward to maybe talking to someone from that program about the different training that they have. And because as I understand it, students can come from other regions. You don't have to be from Bethel. They have dorms there to accommodate students from other regions. So I was really pleasantly surprised to hear about that. And I just think you guys are doing such important work leading in that area to help get kids experience in a trade that they can work in locally and stay home, like you said, and have that semi-subsistence, still participate in traditional cultural ways, which is invaluable to me and to a lot of us. As much as I would love to stay on that topic, I want to switch gears a little bit to the small business program, the SBA 8A contracting, the whole world of Alaska Native corporations being getting involved as federal contractors, and many enter through a mentor-protege program. And I have been reading up on the Bethel Native Corporation, and I know that's something that your corporation has chosen to do. It's one route to go. It's not the only way to get into federal contracting, but what has been your experience? Has it been positive?
Yeah, thank you for the question on the mentor-protege program. We have been active with it for a number of years. We have mentors both in construction and with our environmental division, and it's been valuable to us. Sometimes it can be intimidating to be a village corporation in remote Alaska, and sometimes we put limitations upon ourselves. But having built a relationship with, national firms from the lower 48, we learned that, business is business. The construction work that they do in the lower 48 is not dissimilar. And in fact, we had one of our mentors come up here to Alaska as we looked at a large project in Bethel. And their comment was, our work seems much more complicated because we have to deal with the logistics of transportation, weather, constraints of what is the services available in the remote communities. So there were, sometimes we limit ourselves because we think we're not as sophisticated as other larger companies, but we have different sophistications. So it's really important that people we don't restrain ourselves by our own, preconceptions that we have that limitation. And to be open to being able to, even as the protege, being able to add value to that relationship. And so it's been really good because we've learned that we are as capable, and we have systems in place that we can share. And so it's really a shared relationship. So it's been good for us, and it allowed us to enter into markets that we otherwise wouldn't be in. And sometimes we learned we don't want to be in those markets. So it's not, and that's a good assessment to make, and then to narrow focus where things are successful or are available. So it's really critical to continue to monitor what works best and then find ways to support that.
I really like that idea that there is value in the protege as much as there is in the mentor, and that is a sharing relationship. That's very promising to me to hear that. And it reminds me of stories of the old early days of first contact when gold miners, trappers, missionaries, there's so many stories from early contact days where people were coming to our land and were not prepared. I mean, even to the East Coast, if you look at the East Coast of the lower 48, when people landed from like the Mayflower, they weren't prepared to cope with the environment where they arrived. And the same thing is true for Alaska. And now we're able to use that expertise and actually monetize it in a good way, in a working partnership. And when you find a good relationship, I bet you that's, that's invaluable. Like you said, being able to find out something that you like with maybe lower stakes because you're sharing the program. What about this idea between, I know that there's different kinds of contracts out there in federal contracts land. So some are high revenue with very thin margins. Some are lower revenue, but higher margins. And how do you think about that as you build your business? Are you conscientiously trying to choose a balance between the two, or are you focused on one more than the other?
Yeah, so it is a balancing act for sure. So you need the revenues to build your capabilities, to grow your company, to expand opportunities for employment, and so forth. But there are certainly risks, and with construction, what we've seen is that it could be a higher revenue division, but there are a lot of risks with construction, primarily because with the larger projects, you have a lot of subcontractors that you rely on, and so what we've experienced is with the environmental and engineering division. Those are much smaller revenues, but we're seeing improved margins there because a lot of that work is self-performed.
Okay.
I think that's the primary difference from our experience is the ability to self-perform that professional services work.
So you really have oversight on the work that's being done. Yeah,
and with the smaller revenues, certainly we'll have lower risk with them, just with the size. But you need to find that balance of the opportunity limitations that the smaller revenues inherently have with them.
That's interesting. There were a couple more questions I want to get to, and I'm watching the time. I want to make sure that I definitely thank you for your leadership at AFN. I believe this is your 7th year as co-chair. Is that right?
Yes.
And I am particularly grateful for the work that you've done around the safety, the issue of health and safety of women and children. That's been at the forefront for the last 2 conferences, and I've been watching the progress for Savannah's Act. I'm really hoping that will be signed. So my understanding is it's just waiting to be signed by the president. But beyond the social issues that AFN works on, there are other, the work is beyond that. Is there anything in particular that AFN is working on now around economic development that you can share that pertains to this discussion?
Specifically on our SBA discussion, AFN has worked toward reinstating larger sole source contracts through the 8A program. So that was really important, and that is meaningful to the Alaska Native corporations that participate in that 8A program. So we're happy to see movement towards growing the size of those contracts again, and the accessibility.
I think that is a very important thing, and it's something that now that I know that there's some risk to that being able to participate. I'm very watchful for that. So I'm glad that AFN has that as something that's on their radar. I'm assuming that that's something that AFN leadership travels to DC and we'll talk to members of Congress about that.
In normal times, yes.
Oh, in normal times right now, we're just I haven't even mentioned, and it's terrible. I want to also say that I was impressed with the interview that you did with KYUK with Dr. Zink and talking about the COVID response in your region. And
oh, yeah.
That was really good. I liked that. In fact, it was good to go back in time a little bit because now that we've been in this pandemic / shutdown since March, going back to July, some time has passed and some things have changed, and some of the things that we were thinking about then have kind of dropped off, but it doesn't mean that they aren't still the same. So you guys asked some questions about like whether someone is still positive, even though they have a rapid test, they might not show up as a positive test. So there were some things that people are still wondering about today, but you guys actually asked questions like that back in July.
yeah, it was a fun conversation to have, and Dr. Zink, and she's been truly amazing for the state, and I think she has brought the reassurance on a personal level to so many individuals that would otherwise feel really, really fearful, and fear is not a helpful emotion to carry. So she's really been a very strong, stable, and informed leader.
I appreciate her updates when I can catch them when she's on Facebook Live with Governor Dunleavy, because she does have a very reassuring way of presenting data, and I find her to be trustworthy. She just seems like someone who really knows what she's talking about, very calm and trusting, trustworthy.
Yeah. One of my aunts had said that, she was really concerned about the pandemic and exposure and things like that. And then she added, she says, but I feel better after I hear from Dr. Fauci and Dr. Zink. I thought that was so cute.
I love it. It's true, though. I mean, I live out of state, but when I'm online on Fridays and I see... there's something live from the state of Alaska and Dr. Zink is speaking, I click over to it because she has such good information. And also because I have so much family here. So I want to know what are the rates of infection and, how many, what's the R number and see, what's happening. Well, in the last few minutes we have here, I think it would be really great if we can get to this topic. And sometimes I don't get to this with some of the people I've talked to who are younger than the 1971 cutoff for the original shareholders. So you're what we call the unfortunate term afterborn. I've never liked that term, but I don't mind the term. I have no problem with that term, but for those that do have a problem, I changed it to born after. Born after, okay, so you're born after 1971, and you're in a leadership role for a Village Native Corporation, which is rare. And what I think that's very promising, and it's very encouraging for other people who are born after 1971, and also the descendants who they may be receiving shares through inheritance or being gifted shares.
Yes.
And how have you and your corporation really addressed reaching out, doing outreach to other people who are born after 1971 to make sure that you have a pipeline of people who are engaged to begin the transition from the original people who were involved with leading your Bethel Native Corporation? What do you guys do?
So I'll talk about my experience becoming a shareholder. I have an older sister, and she was an original shareholder, and then myself and my younger brother was here, and so he and I were both born after 71, and I inherited shares. I didn't have any concern with not being an original shareholder because I knew that I would become a shareholder through inheritance at a later time. And in '96, I inherited shares. My brother and I inherited shares from my mom, and thereafter. within a year or two, I ran for the board of directors. And I didn't get elected the first time I ran. I came in close, and then I ran again and was elected to the board. So it was quite a whirlwind of getting involved, from becoming a shareholder within a couple of years being on the board. And I served on the board for 5 years. And then we knew the president at that time was going to be retiring, and they encouraged a shareholder hire. And so we developed the position, and I was approached by several of the older board members and asked if I would consider running for the executive position. And I thought it was done in a very traditional way, where it was not something, I was a magistrate at the time, and it was not something that I had considered. But it was meaningful that the elders on the board came to me with that suggestion. And so I took it under consideration then, and here I am today. So we have at BNC, you can't be on the board and be an employee. So I resigned from the board and took the position. So while I was serving here under this tenure, one day a shareholder came in and they wanted a gifting packet. Their son was turning 18, and they wanted to gift him some shares. And I thought that was so beautiful, that it was like, it was something they earned with their adulthood. I did the same with my sons. With my portion of shares, I've divvied them out to my boys as they become men. And it feels, it's something of value to us that we can on. And it was just beautiful. So we talk about that at our shareholders meeting, gifting shares. So we have not opened it with new enrollees yet at our corporation, but we do see a lot of gifting, like high school graduation gifts or the adulthood gift. So it's been nice to see that.
I love that. I don't have kids of my own, so I have made a plan for where my shares go, so they stay with people who I think are really engaged with being Indigenous. I think that there's just something really special about having that connection to the land, which is where as we were talking about Nicole Borromeo from AFN earlier, she talks so beautifully back in November at AFN about how our land resides with our corporations. And we have our young kids who are out there living on the land. And then if we can gift them shares so that they are part owners, it really helps to just make them feel a part of something. And it is, it's their birthright.
Yes.
That's
it's nice to see that involvement. And I don't know if you noticed my signs back here.
I did. It took me about 20 minutes to notice that.
So I think today is the deadline, right? 5 o'clock. So as we're talking about being involved with our corporations, best of luck to you. And
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been, getting involved with the corporation. It's taken me some time because I live outside, but I travel back and forth enough that I feel like I've really reestablished my connection with my family and my friends here, and making new friends, and also through work. It's really been wonderful.
And it's important. You say you live outside. It's important that those that want to, be elsewhere, you're not constrained to being in the village or the town or the city that you're born in. It can always be a part of you, and you can always contribute back. And so it's meaningful that those that want to go and experience an urban life, you can do that. And in no way is that diminishing your place of home. So I think it actually adds value to those that may want to, I want to live in New York and I want to ride the subway, and to see you doing that encourages their goal for themselves.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. It's something that I do try to encourage young people to consider going to school outside, to not be afraid to leave. Yes. You can come back. We're always here. One thing one of my dad's sisters told me when I went to go to school outside to Chicago, she said, "We'll always know who you are. You will always be a part of us."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, Anna, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I really look forward to talking with you more about many of the topics that we didn't get to at another time in another place. And good luck at AFN this year.
Rihanna. We'll do our best this virtual thing.
Well, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to put the disclaimer up, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.